Jolani forces attacked the Druze, defended themselves fearlessly, but Jolani has a foreign legion. Now, they couldn't battle him alone because he has fighters from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Chechnya. He has foreign fighters there. It's a major plan, and on the third day when they were fighting alone after hundreds were killed, Israel struck 20 targets in Syria. The full-scale massacre has slowed, but it didn't stop. Even yesterday, the day before, they're still killing. They're still using siege tactics, blocking aid, food, and medicine. People are starving there. I get calls every day from women there. They say, we have no baby formula. We have no diapers. Please talk to someone. Talk to someone to open a humanitarian corridor to us because Jolani is blocking everything. He's starving us. Before the Druze had been attacked, also other minorities were massacred. He massacred and beheaded babies. Meanwhile, mainstream media, nothing.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Yasmine Mohammed podcast. Today, we have our guest, Rania Dean. Rania came and spoke with me before about her community, the Druze community who live around the Middle East. Rania herself is an Israeli Druze woman, but her family goes back in the area for generations. And today, she's here to talk about the Druze community in Syria specifically, as they are currently experiencing their own October 7th. So especially Druze people like Rania, who are Israeli Druze, who are still reeling from October 7th, who still have friends and family that they're grieving, that they've lost, or friends and family that are currently still being held hostage. This is another torturous, terrorist situation on top of the first torturous terrorist situation. So the Druze community is just being bombarded. And we invited Rania here to speak to us about what is going on. Why aren't we hearing about it? There's so many gaps that need to be filled in with education and understanding. So Rania, I just wanted to welcome you here today. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thanks for hosting this. You are among the few people who are really exposing what's happening. And so thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm doing my best. I know this is a really difficult topic for you, obviously, because this is your family, these are your people, this is your community who have suffered so much already throughout the region, throughout generations. We're just talking about the most recent attacks. Can you tell me a little bit about the Druze community in Syria? So you, as an Israeli Druze, how is it different for you, or how is it similar? Tell me about your community, and if being separated geographically, or how are you connected? Just talk to me about the community in general, living around in the Middle East.
So, Yasmine, thank you for asking. We are one minority, one ethno-religious minority. We have nothing that separates us as a minority, as a community. Same language, same culture, same religion. Like the Druze community or the religion itself is not divided into branches. So we are only one branch of religion. We are same families because the Druze community doesn't marry outside of the community. So we have to marry each other. You see same family last names in Syria, in Lebanon, in Israel. We are all connected. It's not only like just similar names. Me personally, my family came to Israel from Lebanon before 1948. They came 4 brothers. 2 of them went to Syria. They built a family there. We still have connections with them. My husband's family is Nasr al-Din, basically. Now we shorten it to Din. Nasr al-Din family came from Lebanon. They still have family in Lebanon. They have also family in Israel. They are connected. We are the same family. On a personal level, I still remember when I was very little, once I went with my dad's grandma. She used to have her brothers and sisters, siblings in Syria. And back then there was no internet or phones. Phones were forbidden anyway, the phone calls between Syria and Israel. So they used to go to this hill in Ramat Golan in the Golan Heights, and and they were taken, like speakers in binoculars, how you say it in English, to just look at each other and speak with each other. I still have the feeling how emotional it was just to see that you have a daughter and a dad that never seen will they know they will never see each other again, only because of political problems, that they have no hand in it. So this is how we grew up. But as you know, and as I explained to you in a previous meeting, we the Druze belong to the land. We are very loyal. We are peace people. We never cause any chaos. So we respected their position as Syrians, as they respected our position as Israelis. They tried to be as loyal as they could to their culture and their country. They were a peace makers all of their lives. I have just to tell you that we are very different because we belong to different countries on a political and geographical aspect, not on a personal aspect. So let me explain to you about the Syrian people first. The Syrian people live under Islamic majority regime, an Assad regime. Now, I will explain about how it was later, but just to tell you, it's a dictatorship. They were sidelined. They were never part of any, major important political positions. And yes, they served in the military because it was mandatory, but they were poor. They had no any type of impact or on what is happening in Syria. And now in Israel, we are like a top performing minority. We are only 150,000, while in Syria they are more than 500,000. We are only 150,000. We are in every aspect of Israeli life. We are in Knesset, in parliament. We are in judges. We are in diplomacy. We are ambassadors. We are everywhere. And the education, we are very well educated. Also, the Syrian are educated, but it's not because the government is helping them. It's because they not want to be educated. But in Israel, they encourage us to be educated. We started with zero education level when Israel was established. Now, the Druze people, especially the Druze women, last year, they held the highest education level in Israel, nationwide. So and I just want to tell you something, maybe just to break this sadness and bad atmosphere. Just last month, Druze students from one Druze school that is #1 in Israel, by the way, on educational level, they launched a space satellite through SpaceX project. Another Druze group from another Druze students, high school students, they won the judges prize in the robotic competition that was held here in the USA. And these are just two examples. Now imagine at the same time our Druze brothers and sisters were massacred, and the students in the universities were forced to leave their universities, leave years of hard work and money that they invested in, because these radical Islamists were calling takbir, takbir, annihilate the Druze, murder them. So this is the difference. This is the major difference. The only thing that I want to tell you on a macro level, we in Israel, we don't need to hide our identity, because we fear nothing in Israel, while they have to integrate, to blend in order to survive. And this is not a new tragedy. We've been always like that since decades.
Yeah.
And you know that more than me.
Yeah, for generations, for 1,400 years. Yeah. This is a really important point. Thank you so much for making that clear to us, Rania, because, even though these geographical lines exist, these political lines exist, your community is one community. In fact, your community is one family. So what's happening in Syria is hurting you and is affecting you just as much as when it was happening to the Druze in Israel. It doesn't matter if they're in Israel, if they're in Lebanon, or if they're in Syria, or wherever they are your people. And these geographic and political lines are almost like not arbitrary, but they're like a secondary issue. They're the core of the Druze community will always be, like you said, one people, one language, one religion, one family, in fact.
Correct,
So,
Yasmin. Correct.
yeah, I'm glad that you talked to us a little bit about what it was like under Bashar al-Assad and under his father. It was a very brutal dictatorship, as you explained to us. Um, and now we've got this situation going on with Jolani and his terrorist regime. And it seems like something that we already knew was really bad is getting way worse. So can you talk to us about what is happening to your people today in Syria?
Yes, just 2 points, if you allow me to just
Of
clarify.
course.
I am really sad about the Druze in Syria. I feel responsible. We are for generations. We were, deliberately not getting involved on each other's matters because of the political problems and because of the sanction that they might be
Yeah.
gone through if we would just interfere and talk about them. But I think that now they are silenced, they are oppressed, and I see myself not only as a Druze but also as a human being. On a human being level, how come these people are massacred? The Alawite are massacred, the Yazidis. Today I saw a video of a girl, her name is Mira. She belongs to one small minority called Murshidi in Syria. They are like another minority in Syria, very few members of them. And they kidnapped her and enslaved her and forced her to be a sex slave. And now when the media started talking about it, they forced her to be filmed as if she ran away from her family because of pressure. So this is the culture that Druze people are facing, as if they didn't have enough during Bashar al-Assad. I want to just also elaborate on how they lived under Bashar al-Assad, because I feel full of anger, especially when journalists that are supposed to know the facts are writing. And to be honest with you, I love Israel. I think I'm one of the luckiest people around among the Druze community to be born and raised in Israel. And I'm so grateful for my country of all what it's doing right now for the Druze people. But despite this, there are two journalists that I've been reading for them and I admire them on a personal level. One of them wrote an article why we as Israelis are not supposed to help the Druze in Syria. And she explained this, that the Druze belong to Assad regime, were Assad supporters, and therefore we don't need to help them because they are our enemies. And I was reading just a day after the massacre, and I was saying, what do you know? What do you know? How
Yeah.
come you write an article and you are one of the most well-known journalists in Israel? How come you write an article without checking the facts? Did you know that
Mhm.
the Druze had a breaking point in 2014 when during the civil war, when Assad wanted to force them to kill other Syrians, and then the Sheikh Wahid al-Balwas, he was their leader back then, very different from his son now, by the way. He was a real decent man. And he said this very famous say. He said, Dam Suri ala Suri haram, which means, how I explain it, Syrian blood on Syrian hands is forbidden. Over 38,000 Druze refused to fight. Therefore, the whole Druze community was collectively punished by Assad. Many of them fled Syria through Lebanon, and many of them were caught and were executed. Now, this is during the civil war. Even with Israel, they never held a weapon against Israel, because there was basically no war since 74 with Israel. And the claim that Assad supports Iran, and Hezbollah, that's why the Druze are our enemies, is just like telling me we cannot protect the Jewish in Iran because Iran supports Hezbollah. What
That's a really
control
good
do they
analogy.
have? What control do they have on this issue anyway? So that was
Mhm.
something that really made me feel so annoyed.
Yeah, no, they see things unfortunately at such a surface level. It's almost it's so difficult for people from the Western world or from Israel, from freer countries. It's so difficult for them to understand, what it's like for people under these regimes. They just don't get it. In
Exactly.
Egypt, the highest Coptic priest he will praise the Egyptian government and he will say like, oh, the Christians are happy here, the Coptics are happy here. Of course he's going to say that
Of
because
course,
he's trying to keep himself protected and his people protected, but
exactly.
then people will say, oh no, look, he's a supporter of the of Sisi or whatever. No, he's not. He's a supporter of staying alive.
Of
So they
survival.
don't, it's survival and they don't see that. They have this expectation. They'll say something like, well, if the Druze community weren't happy in Syria, they would protest.
Yeah,
They would fight
exactly.
against an Assad. And it's like,
Yes.
are you insane? Like you don't understand
And
at
these are
all what
journalists.
these, yeah, yeah. But it's just it just shows you the level of privilege that they live in, that they can't even comprehend that these people are truly hostages in their own homelands for generations. There's a reason why, I mean, between you and me, and I hate to say this, but everybody knows this. Like the Druze are not Muslims, and they have to pretend, they
They
have
are
to
not.
act like they are in order to stay alive in these countries. So, like you were saying, in Israel, you're free to express yourself, express your religiosity, your culture, your language, who you are, and live the way you want to live. But if you're living under a Muslim regime, of course you have to abide by their rules. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or Jewish or atheist or whatever you are going to abide by the rules. You're going to put a hijab on. You're going to act like a Muslim because you need to survive. You're not going to eat or drink in Ramadan. It's just the way it is. But unfortunately, I totally hear what you're saying, and that parallel you made with Jewish people in Iran is a perfect example of exactly how, ignorant that comment was
The
from that
denial,
journalist.
exactly, the denial that
Hmm.
if it was just a Syrian matter or Druze matter also adds another level of lack of knowledge and lack of understanding really how things go on. Like, do you think that if you leave the Druze people live only like just few kilometers from our northern border. If you want to let these people get annihilated as the plan says, and it's very easily, they can do it very easily because they're doing it right now with other minorities. So
Yeah,
if you want to do that, you're going to end up with Julani and ISIS on your backyard. Like
yeah,
what kind of journalist can write such an article? So this was very
mhm.
like on a personal level, I felt
Like a
so annoyed
betrayal.
by yes,
Hmm.
by this journalist or others that have this thing. Forget about the blood covenant that we always say that the shared destiny and a blood covenant in a good meaning, that shared destiny and a brit that we have with the Jewish people. But I want to tell you, you asked me another question about Julani, and now when we see Julani, we feel all that what they went through during Assad's regime was just a vacation. This is how I
Yeah.
feel. Was nothing compared, nothing. Like remember, if you
Mm.
remember everything I was always saying, and I said it with you last time that we had to hide our identity just to survive another day under radical Islamic regimes is now
Mhm.
loud and clearly proving. The massacre of the
Mhm.
Druze in Suweida, which is not the first one, by the way. Giuliani had committed other massacres in 2021, in 2015. He kidnapped 40 women and children from the Druze
Oh my
community.
gosh.
He forced one village in Idlib in northern Syria to convert. So it wasn't not just it wasn't just a tragedy, it's the beginning. I feel this is the beginning of a dark and dangerous chapter, not only in Syria's history, but in the whole Middle Eastern history. And this is another added chapter, let's be honest. So to understand what's happening now with the Druze and other minorities under Julani, we must unmask Muhammad al-Julani. So not just the man, but the system he represents. And we must say it clearly. This is not revolution. It is a jihadist takeover. Julani, which he claims he born as Ahmad Hussein al-Shara, there are so many speculation that he's not even this man. But anyway, let's claim this. He is Ahmad al-Shara. He was never a freedom fighter. He was a former commander in Al Qaeda in Iraq. He was trained under infamous terrorist Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. After being imprisoned by the US in Camp Buka, he returned to terrorism and founded Jabhat al-Nusra. It's another Al-Qaeda branch in Syria. So now some people, even in the Arab world, would say, oh, he's a dual agent. He works for the West. You know what? Let's say this is really what happened. Let's now talk honestly. Let's say they really tried to recruit him. Once Al-Qaeda, forever Al-Qaeda, he's just using them. They're not using him. That should be clear to the West. That should be so clear because his forces have committed endless atrocities over the years, mass beheadings, suicide bombings in school and marketplaces, torture, abductions, and public executions of minorities, destruction of religious shrines, and forced conversions. He did enslaving and selling women on public. He's still doing it. His people, not anyone else. Now, this terror regime in Syria is expanding again. He's playing the same deadly, let's say, good cop, bad cop game. He sends jihadists to massacre a village. Then he sends his own security forces, same people, by the way, to pretend to save the survivors, but in return, they have to surrender their weapons. Now, the Druze and Suweida refused to fall into this lie. Their spiritual leader, Sheikh al-Hijri, had made this clear. He said, we are part of Syria, but we didn't rise up just to fall into something worse. He's the last samurai, I call him, because he's the only one that refused to surrender his weapons. Now, not just the Salafi jihadi elite who follow Ibn Taymiyyah's radical ideology is part of al-Julani forces. He, Al-Hijri demanded equal rights for all Syrians, including women and minorities. He didn't demand it only for the Druze people, and he refused to accept the new extremist order. Now, Suweida is the 14th district of Syria. Now is the only region that refused to surrender its weapon, the last one. The people said we were oppressed under Assad, but if he's gone, we want real peace, no more terror. They even dared normalize with Israel. They came, some religious people came to religious ceremony here in Israel, and they started calling them traitors, and they started calling them that they are, how dare they normalize with Israel, even though our Israeli Arabs, they go to Mecca every year with no any diplomatic relations with Mecca. And even though, like same Al-Julani, Jabhat al-Nusra soldiers, they were coming and been treated in Israeli hospitals a few years ago. Julani forces attacked, the Druze defended themselves fearlessly, but Julani has a foreign legion. Now, they couldn't, battle him alone because he has fighters from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Chechnya. He has foreign fighters there. It's a major plan. And on the third day when they were fighting alone after hundreds were killed, Israel struck 20 targets in Syria. And the full-scale massacre has slowed, yes, but it didn't stop. Even yesterday, the day before, they're still killing. They're still using siege tactics, blocking aid, food, and medicine. People are starving there. I get calls every day from women there. They say, we have no baby formula. We have no diapers. Please talk to someone as if I can do something, but I'm trying. Talk to someone to open a humanitarian corridor to us because Julani is blocking everything. He's starving us. And allow me, Yasmine, I'm sorry that, there's a lot to say, but allow me also to mention that before the Druze had been attacked, also other minorities were massacred, and he called them fulul nidam, kids, elderly. These are not fulul nidam, babies. He massacred and beheaded babies. Meanwhile, mainstream media, nothing. I was trying to find one article about what had happened in Syria, not even one. I called 5 journalists here from Washington Post, from New York, what is it called? New York Times, other journalists from Britain. Nothing. I found only 3 articles that describe the massacre as sectarian clashes. Yeah, sectarian clashes. They beheaded elderly, religious people. The Druze are lucky that they were able to just take all the women and children and put them in a safe zone. Otherwise, we would see exactly same thing that had happened on October 7th. By the way, Yasmin, the Druze don't usually show dead bodies. We don't have this, and we don't like to, humiliate our deceased. But I was able to see some footages. It it took me back to October 7th, and I'm still there. I can't get them out of my head yet. It's very devastating to see this silent of these people who claim that they are defending freedom and freedom of minorities. It's very annoying and upsetting, and I don't know how to explain it even in words, to see that this French prime minister shaking hands just 2 days. Just two
Yeah.
days after the massacre had happened, he's shaking a hand of a terrorist, calling him a president. President of what?
Mhm. Yeah.
He's a jihadi.
Mhm. In so many ways, it feels like a broken record. It feels like this has happened before, and how many more times does this have to happen again? And it's like, why is the world not recognizing this very clear pattern of behavior that keeps going on and on and on? You know, we were talking about Hamas, we're talking about October 7th, we're talking about Jelani, we're talking about Syria, we're talking about the Taliban, we're talking about Afghanistan, we're talking about Iraq, we're talking about ISIS. It's the same thing over and over and over again, right? The minorities get massacred, the women get taken as sex slaves. You know, like how many times do we have to have this repetition going on? And it seems like every single time they act as if this is a new situation, and every
That's
single
in a
time they
best,
repeat the same mistakes.
right? That's
Yeah, like,
in a good situation, and other situations they just ignore it as if it didn't
yes.
happen.
I mean, it's almost it's which I don't know which one is worse and more dehumanizing, to be honest. So they're either going to ignore it and say, it's just, this is just some sort of civil disagreement between sectarian groups, completely misreading the situation in reality.
You
Or
know,
they're going to be shaking hands, people like Trump and Macron acting as if these are legitimate leaders. This is legitimate government. Same thing they did with the Taliban. Same thing they do with the Islamic regime of Iran, right? Like these are people that are they're terrorists. They're unequivocal terrorists. But for whatever reason, here in Canada, our Minister of Women and Gender was calling the Taliban her brothers, the liberal minister. So, it's like at the time the Prime Minister of New Zealand, right? Or the Prime Minister of Canada, like they're all acting as if these terrorist organizations can somehow be reasoned with. It's like when you were talking about Jelani, they think that they can play. It's so sad because this is what they actually they have such a level of arrogance and ignorance, that makes them think that these people will ever do anything other than their single-minded focus, which is towards the global caliphate, which is what you're talking about here. That's
yeah,
exactly why do you think there's people coming from Pakistan and people coming from Chechnya and people
right.
coming from all over? Same thing like we saw with ISIS. Why were people coming from Germany and Canada and America and France? Why are they coming from all over the world? Because they care about what's happening in Syria? No, because this is the new caliphate. That's why. Because it's all about the global caliphate. And they're
Right.
always going to be focused on that. And until we start to realize that and recognize that and see these patterns of behavior repeating over and over again, but it's like they look at situations like the Christians being killed in Nigeria and they say, oh, it's climate change. They'll always come up with a reason every single time. It's like something else.
They have a bank of
No?
reasons, unreasonable reasons. They have a bank of it that
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. I always try to be very objective when I discuss things, but this time, maybe because it's the second time that I experienced such a massacre, we just, grieving
Fresh.
October
Yeah.
7th. I know personally people who are still held hostages in Gaza, for God's sake, for 2 years,
Mm.
and the word is silent. And now I want to be really very loud and clear. I start to doubt what are these leaders want from us. Like
Yeah.
let's be naive. I think the world leaders are completely misunderstanding the mentality of radical jihadist ideology. I want to believe that they're really misunderstanding it, because these
Mm.
people do not believe in peace agreement. Never. They don't make peace agreements with infidels. These
Mhm.
Salafi jihadi people don't acknowledge it. They go with the Hudaybiyah treaty principle or doctrine. Neither they
Mhm.
respect deals based on financial benefits, which the West is trying to do. They're trying to give them like financial benefits. Maybe they will be related
They're
financially and not
projecting.
do
They're treating them the
anything.
way, yeah, they think they're treating them with using taxes that they think would work on them, you know?
Yeah,
What if we
yeah.
give them land? What if we give them jobs? What if we give them financial security? None of these, that's not what they want. They want you dead
Deception.
and they want your land.
Yeah,
Plus.
and deception is part of their strategy, Yasmin. They
Hmm.
use negotiations to buy time, not to make
Of
peace. As
course.
of
It's in the
money, let's
Quran.
focus. Yeah, let's focus on the money. They follow the say, "Subhana man sakhara laka hada." I hear it all the time on their speeches or their fatwas, which means they feel that this is all theirs anyway.
Of
So no
course.
one is doing them anything, any favor. No one is really. They are not, committed to anything because this is theirs anyway. What the West
Hmm.
is doing is pouring money into jihadist controlled territories, thinking they're weakening one terror group by funding another. It's a
Yes.
historic mistake. They did it with
Hmm.
Hamas to weaken the PLO. They ended with October 7th. Now they're
Hmm.
doing the same thing, playing Julani, which is Sunni, against Hezbollah and Iran, which is Shiite, using Qatar as a so-called balancer to weaken Turkey's influence in Syria. But Qatar funds both Hamas and Al-Julani. Now
Hmm.
there are talks that they are gonna fund Al-Julani, and Iran is also funds Hamas. They are not enemies. They are
Hmm.
so-called co-players in their
Yes.
100-year grand plan to establish a radical Islamic empire. The belief that Julani will stay under control just because he's linked to Qatari money is dangerous and naive. These groups are ideologically united, even when politically divided. At the end, Yasmin, at the end of the day, they all want the same thing. And it's not peace for sure. Israel might win temporary from some deals that the West is gonna do. The USA is gonna win maybe temporary from some peace and some quietness because we all know that Julian is very calculated. He was willing to change his turban and to wear suit just to gain some time and power. But what about the minorities? What about these people who live there, who will be oppressed because these amounts of money that you are pouring into these jihadist bank accounts are going to be used to oppress and more these people? What about the Alawites, the Christians, other Sunni branches? They are also against this. The people now that they are trying to strengthen, they are the minority in Syria. I want to believe that. I still want to believe that. I want to still want to believe in human beings and that they really don't want these atrocities to their neighbors. People who lived with, the Druze people during the civil war, they opened their homes for Sunni people and they sheltered them. Now these same people, some of them had turned against the Druze people. Yasmin, humanitarian aid is being hijacked in Gaza, even in Gaza. USA knows that. The West knows that. These, donations, big donations that these nice organizations, humanitarian organizations, are sending daily to Gaza. Who's using them? Who's controlling this money? You know that pack of cigarettes now in Gaza costs 250 shekels, which is almost $80, more
Wow.
expensive than Switzerland.
Mhm.
Everyone who is with Hamas is benefiting. So what are you doing?
Mhm.
What is this
Mhm.
mentality? What is this logic that you are going through? They're playing a chess game, thinking they are step ahead, but it's all wrong. In my opinion, it's all wrong. And if I know nothing, I'm no one. But don't you see that history repeats itself? And every time we
Exactly.
are in a different level of we are more defeated and more defeated on the
Hmm.
ground.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. And every single time they think, oh, we're going to play them. Oh, we're going to support the Mujahideen so that they can fight the Russians. Okay,
The-
well, now look what
yeah,
you have,
the
right?
only
They think,
yeah, the only country that
yeah.
understands this, I guess, is Israel. Israel is fighting
Hmm.
now everyone, just trying to
Hmm.
explain to them
Yeah.
why this game is so dangerous. Israel
Hmm.
knows what is going to happen if Syria is falling totally into
Hmm.
jihadi regime.
Hmm.
And no
Yeah,
one is
this is
listening
a
to Israel.
really, it's a tinderbox right now. This is a really important time in history to get right. You know, the Iranian people have been doing everything that they possibly can to topple this Iranian regime. It needs to go. It needs to be the beginning of the end. As long as they are in power and help and Qatar, places like Qatar, uplifting and funding groups like Jolani, Hamas, Hezbollah, etc. This is a never-ending story, right?
No,
So I feel like
never.
we have to get to the heart of the matter, which is the bank of the matter. And then that will, it's not going to eradicate them. They're still going to be out there, but at least they won't have such deep pockets. They won't have such financial
Yeah.
support.
And me, as a taxpayer, as an American taxpayer, I have the authority to say I don't want my money to fund terrorist groups that are killing my brothers and sisters, that are killing my Israeli brothers and sisters. I don't want.
So tell me about, you were saying that you voted for Trump, hoping that he would get this equation right. How have you been feeling recently seeing him shaking hands with Jolani?
It's devastating to me, to be honest with you. It's very devastating because he was my only hope. I want to believe that he knows what he's doing, or his advisors are not really well influenced from Iranian lobby that is very strong here in the USA. I really want to believe that at the end of the day, things are going to be right, but I doubt it, Yasmin. I see it. We live this culture. We hear them every day. We know what they are up to. And you know what? Yesterday, an agreement was signed with the Houthis, right?
Yeah.
Today, they were stepping on a picture of our president, just as a sign of humiliation.
Mhm.
This is a clear message that we don't respect agreements.
There's never
Uh,
going to be
is never
any
going to end.
agreements
The
that are
negotiations
respected.
with
Yeah.
Iran, even leave it. I know nothing, okay? I'm just
Mm.
no one. But we discovered, Israel discovered that, I don't know who discovered that, but was reading it on Israeli news that they have another location. So all these negotiations for years about the, their steps, where they are at, and the levels that they reached, is all nothing, nothing. They are going ahead with their plan. Nothing will stop them. No negotiations, no financial benefits, nothing. They don't need this. They don't believe in this.
I
Because
hate to, I try very hard to be optimistic and to stay positive about things and hoping that, the truth will set us free, love conquers all, and all of the other tropes. But I have always maintained, and I'm being proven right now. Yes, the Biden administration made a lot of mistakes. Yes, the Obama administration made a lot of mistakes, but people put so much hope in Trump that he was going to be different, that he was going to get it. He was going to be our savior, right? They had him up there with, like, on par with Jesus. And it's like, he doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about us. He cares about himself. And I don't understand. I don't know what if he, what this 4D chess game that he might possibly be playing or whatever. But at the end of the day, all of these politicians, all of these men think in 4-year spurts. This is what we're up against. We're up against a global, never-ending focus, like laser focus from billions of people across the planet versus men that think in 4-year spurts, right? So how can a theocracy, which has, they play the long game. They're not worried about getting voted in again. They're not worried about anything because they'll just murder people if they get in their way, right? And then you're up against these governments, these diplomats that are just trying to, make the deals and rub the elbows and make the plans. And it's like, how do we win when there's two groups of people playing two completely different games? And I
Yasmin,
don't know what the answer is.
Yasmin, I have to clarify. I always try not to get involved in politics because I've never want really to criticize any politicians. I always we studied political sciences. We are aware of the real politics and ideology and the balancing powers and everything. But sometimes when you see that by the time, like these people are buying time only, these tactics that the West is used to them are not valid anymore. Maybe they need to come with a different approach.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to just understand these people, their ideology more deeply, to understand that nothing will stop
You
them.
need to believe them. When they tell you what they're doing and why
Exactly,
they're
they're
doing it,
saying
just
it.
believe them. That's it. Yeah.
They're saying it. We want peace. I want peace. But they don't want peace, do they? They don't want, because they will never make peace with us. We are infidels. We are filthy for them. They would never shake our hands for real. Because what America has, or what Israel has, or what Europe has, it's theirs in their belief. It forever.
Yeah.
It had always been theirs. It will forever be theirs. So
This is a very important point. Yeah.
what peace do you wanna achieve with people who think that what you owe is theirs? You have
Yeah.
nothing. And I voted for Trump because we opened this conversation. I have to close it. I would never wish that Biden or Obama administration comes. I feel that where we at now is because of them. I blame them personally because of their lack of understanding, because they treated the radical Islamists as if they were one of their own, with the
Yeah.
same mentality that they treat themselves with, which was prove itself wrong. I'm now very worried that Trump's administration is falling into the same path with different tactics. Like now, let's promise them with money. That's
Yeah.
my fear. That what is it?
They all
Yeah,
think they're
so
smarter. They all think that they're going to be more
it's so
wily and
dangerous.
strategic. Yeah, it is so dangerous. And I think you made a really good point there, Rania, which I'm not sure I ever explicitly said on this podcast, but it's true. They do believe that this whole world, this whole planet already belongs to Allah, already belongs to Islam. So these Jews and Christians, these non-believers, infidels, Americans, Hindus, whatever they are like illegitimately on Islamic land. That's how they see it. They don't see it like we are going to get rid of these people, then take over their countries and then establish the caliphate. It's like, no, 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 this whole place is already belonging to us. We just need to get rid of this, these people that are kind of like interloping on our land. That's how they see it. It's a perspective that I'm not sure many people in the West are familiar with. I'm not sure if they understand that. They don't recognize the legitimacy of any of your countries. They
Right.
don't recognize the legitimacy of any of your governments or any of your politicians. This is
The,
their land, this is their planet, and they will get rid of you. The plan is to get rid of everybody until the whole planet is back to everybody is praying to Allah again. That's the future that they're
right.
hoping to see.
Yasmin, this Salafi jihadist branch of Islam even consider other Muslims are infidels or
Yeah,
murtadun,
of
because they
course. Yeah.
believe that every Muslim should commit jihad against all infidels. And if they don't do that, that means they are not real Muslims.
This is true.
The moment they killed the Alawites on
Mhm.
Ramadan, that proved that they are Salafi jihadi branch. If this wasn't
Hmm.
clear to no one, I don't know, like
Hmm.
it should be so clear. But in case it wasn't, so now, because
Hmm.
this branch of Islam is the only branch that allows killing and committing jihad on Ramadan, on Ashur
Yeah.
al-Haram, on some of the year months. So, what other signs, as you said, what other signs should they give you? How
Hmm.
clear should it be to know that we
Hmm.
are in the middle of the war? The West always thinks of war, in my opinion, and now they prove it to me again and again, only when military comes and battles
Yeah.
another military. They don't know that this Salafi jihadi war had started 30 years ago when they went into our educational system. They started the cultural jihad. They started the financial jihad long years ago. So
Yeah.
now
They're
they
doing it
are
all in here too in the West. That's all happening in North America as well.
now they are in the middle of this war, and the West
Hmm.
is trying to prevent war.
Hmm. They don't recognize it, like you said. They don't see it happening. Yeah. And once they see it, it's too late.
It
Once they
is too late
notice.
anyway.
Yeah.
Europe is
Yeah.
gone. Most
I
of
know.
Europe is gone.
Hmm. You made another important point that I wanted to come back on just to make it very clear for listeners. You talked about how the Shia Iranians are funding the Sunni Hamas, when it's against the Jewish people. This is something that when people talk about, oh, Sunni versus Shia versus this versus that, what they need to understand is I've referenced this quote before. It's an Arabic quote that I'm sure you're familiar with, Rania, where it's like, me against my brother, me and my brother against my cousin, me and my brother and my cousin against the foreigner.
Right,
They will take it step by step by step by step. Okay. Jews are first, and then Christians, Hindus, all the other non-believers, right? And then they will work on each other even. Then it's like, even you're not Muslim enough, you're not Salafi
right,
enough, you're not following that, you're not jihadi enough, right? So it's not, it's a, it's a, it's a process, and people back to that old unfortunate, that poem that was written about the Holocaust that said first they came for the socialists and I wasn't a socialist, so I didn't speak up. It's the same idea. It's the same thing happening here. When people see this happening to the Druze in Syria, when they see it happening to the Jewish people in Israel, they're like, it's none of my business. It's over there. These are civil disagreements. They don't understand that this is all coming for them. In fact, it's already come for them. It's already sunk its teeth into their shores. And so they don't recognize the threat, which makes them even more vulnerable, which
right,
makes it even easier for them to infiltrate because you're clueless. You don't even realize what's happening in your countries.
right, right. And in what world, like just this little tiny country should battle the war of the whole world, and the whole world is
Yeah.
against it.
Israel's the only one that gets it though, until the others start to get it, until they see the rivers of blood flowing in their own countries, then they're going to continue to be, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be clueless and to not recognize this as a problem. Israelis don't have that privilege. They've got bombs falling on them every day. They've got
Right,
buses blowing up. They've got people being kidnapped. They've got babies being killed. They've got women being raped. They don't have the privilege of saying, it's none of my business. It's happening over there. You know, we
right.
had 9/11 in New York, but it was so long ago. They forgot. Now they think, oh, it's okay. It's not a threat anymore. It's
Uh,
like you need fresh blood constantly. How many trucks of peace did we have? How many stabbings did we have all around the world? It's nothing's ever enough. Charlie Hebdo, Samuel Paty. Still, look how Macron is acting with Jolani. Like
yes,
I don't know.
Yasmin, they call it Islamophobia. Okay,
Yeah,
Islamophobia. I was born among Muslims. My best friend is Muslim. I love her as if I love my sister. I'm not Islamophobic. I'm totally not Islamophobic.
you
But
should be.
I
It's a very legitimate and rational fear.
Yet
you
I'm very
know?
objective. I know that
Hmm.
many Muslims also are suffering from what is
Hmm.
happening. And
Hmm.
yet, when
Of
we
course.
talk and
They
they
are the
call this,
first to suffer.
and we,
Hmm.
yes, and when we talk about it and show you proved, we showed you October 7th atrocities. Same atrocities are really repeating themselves again and again. And when we show you these things and just don't want to see it, what can we call this? Ignorance. What we can call it. Give me a title for this ignorance. You see what they are doing is so clear. They record themselves saying, we are from the security forces of Al-Julani, the national security forces. I have tens of recordings of soldiers with the uniform saying this. I put them all on my social media. They are telling you why you don't want to listen. So this is something I think, I don't know, like psychologically they don't want to admit
Yeah.
it. They
Yeah.
don't want to admit that these people are a step ahead of them.
Hmm. Yeah. There's, I think that's definitely a part of it for sure. Um, Rania, I could continue talking to you forever, but I have to be, fair and allow my listeners. We've got a bunch of people here who've got questions and comments for you. So I'll allow them the opportunity to speak with
Sure.
you, and I'll take a back seat for a moment. So Cindy, you go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question to Rania, please.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you very much, Rania, for speaking. Before I ask my question, I just wanted to say that, I do see so many similarities between the Druze community and the Jewish community. And it reminds me of, when Europe was Nazi occupied, starting in the late 30s and then, proceeding to what would happen through World War II with, the genocide of, I mean, millions of other people as well, but mostly Jews. I mean, there were two-thirds of the population was eliminated. Most of the Jews went to Palestine, before Israel became a state. Then when Israel became a state, um, well, a lot of the Jews went to America. Um, then, by the time Israel became a state, the rest of the Jews that were in the Muslim world and Arab world ended up, there were Farhoods, and there was like this expulsion of the Jews from the Middle East to collectively punish the Jews that were remaining in the Arab Muslim world, who may have had a relatively better situation than the Jews in the Western Christian world. But, once Israel became the Zionist state, so it was an independent Jewish state, there was a real backlash against Jews in the Middle East, and even to this day, worldwide, punishing Jews for having the state of Israel. So when I think about the Druze community, it seems like there are some very similar parallels. The Druze community, from what you've been telling me, are very a unified group. You mostly are within each other. You may be in different countries, but you're one big family. And I'm wondering how much of the backlash in Syria against the Druze in Syria actually has to do with the fact that, in a sense, Druze are Zionists. They may not be Jewish Zionists, but because there are any, Druze that recognize the right of Jews or to have an independent state. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but I'm wondering specifically from the standpoint of anti-Zionism that really is sort of the main thing of Hamas and Islamists, to try to either destroy the independent Jews or or get rid of them altogether if they're not going to be, subjected to Sharia law as dhimmi. So I'm just wondering if there's a similar thing that's going on, because I haven't really heard that discussed, but it seems like one of the reasons for the backlash against the Druze is specifically because of Israel, whether or not all of the Druze are living in Israel, just the fact that any of them are living in Israel.
Thank you, Sandy, for this question. So, even you had a little bit like I felt that you are trying to ask me, but you hesitated to say the word Zionism because Zionism has a very negative connotation among many people. And I was asked this question many times because I speak on I do advocacy tours for Israel. And once the first time, I remember the first time because that was the first time, a rabbi in a synagogue had asked me, Rania, are you a Zionist? And honestly, that day I didn't know how to answer because I'm not Jewish. And if you want to connect Zionism as a Jewish matter, then no, I'm not a Zionist because this is a Jewish matter, even though I'm Israeli. But if you connect Zionism with values, with the way of battling oppression, with the way of uniting, with the way of building a new future for your oppressed nation, I think I relate to every and all aspects of Zionism because Zionism, if we put it, despite the bad and negative connotation of it around the world, if we put it versus jihad, this is the way Jewish people fought oppression from the Nazis, and the Arabs are fighting oppression through jihad. If we put them all one near the other, right, in a comparison, how did the Jewish people fought the annihilation or the oppression, which was true oppression, by the way, because it wasn't their fault. They didn't initiate it, they didn't start it. But the way they fought it, they got organized, they built a cause. Zionism is a movement. They built a movement. They spoke, did advocacy, they spoke with the UN, they convinced countries to recognize their right, their historical and ancient right of a country. So if you ask me, do I relate on these things? I do relate on these things 100%. If you ask me, do you relate with the other way of battling the so-called oppression, even though me, you, everyone that was born in Israel, we know who started 1948 war. We know what happened to the Jewish people that lived under Arabic regimes back then. The Farhud incident was only one of them when Jewish were punished publicly. So if I go to that way of dealing with so-called oppression, I don't relate. I'm against killing people. I'm against a collective punishment. So for me, Zionism is way, way more, like a logical way for me to relate, even if I'm not Jewish. So if you now talk about the Druze people in Syria, the Druze people in Syria were educated to hate Israel for many decades because it's a dictatorship regime. Despite this, because of our values, because of our culture as Druze that we keep so dear and so close to our hearts, we knew even the Druze in Syria, and here I allow myself to speak on their behalf because they are very peaceful people. We always teach our kids to be a bridge between two nations and many nations. We are a peace bridge. The Druze learned how to always separate this from their own narrative. So the Druze in Syria may not, relate on a Zionism theory because they don't know it, because they were educated for decades that it's a bad thing. But if they are exposed to it, in my opinion, they will relate to it. But it's only my opinion.
My apologies. I think I appreciate the answer, but I think you're talking about something slightly different
Mm.
than what I'm asking. And
Ask me again then.
just for full disclosure, I mean my parents and grandparents were, refugees, were survivors of the European, the
Holocaust.
Sorry,
Holocaust.
Cindy, I'm just gonna have to
Oh,
interrupt.
yeah.
We've got like six
Yeah,
people's
you've got
hands up
other,
and we're
okay.
already over time. But if you want to ask the question again very succinctly and clearly, and then Rania can maybe answer
Yeah, I'd
it
love
just
to
as
answer the
specifically.
question because I'm
I,
sorry that
I
I
guess
didn't get
what
it.
I guess what I'm meaning is the from the Syrian Islamist regime. I'm wondering if some of the retaliation against the Druze is because the Druze are perceived as being Zionist because they
I get it.
support. Right, right. So it's more not how you understand Zionism, but how The
Oh, I see.
Islamists understand you as being a Zionist, you know? Yeah,
Let's be clear. The Islamic Jihadi people always, even on their social media, they call us Sahiyuniyun, which means they call even the Druze in Syria now, they very widely use this expression that we are like the Jewish people or they were Jewish people lovers. But do you think this is the reason? I don't think so, because the Syrian people were separated. It's nothing to do with this. It's their ideology. It's nothing to do with us in Israel being so close and so loyal to Israel. I don't think so. It's their ideology.
okay.
Pure evil.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
great. Next in line, we have Clara. We had Mars, but he left. Okay, so Clara, you're next.
Thank you. So my first question, I'm not sure if you answered it already, is why the West was so ignorant and positive, because I was just shocked when I saw on the TV in Germany people were so positive. So you touched a bit on the arrogance. And the other question is, what is your future vision? It seems like it's really needed to have military strength to survive as a minority. So do you think it has to be something like Rojava with their own military base and all this to be safe for the Druze people?
Sorry, I
Yes.
didn't get the second answer. I didn't hear. What was it?
Oh, sorry. The
Sorry.
second question, you mean? What do you think must happen for the Druze people in order to be safe in the future?
Mhm. I would hope for international, intervention or international involvement to keep them safe. I would hope for every minority in Syria, honestly, but I don't see this happening because of the ignorance and because of the denial of what is happening. Our only hope is either federation, just to keep them safe within their own territory and opening, humanitarian corridors to Jordan and Israel to enable them to work and thrive. These people are starving under this regime that is starving them deliberately. So this is what we think. The Druze people cannot live and will never tolerate to live under dictatorship. Not dictatorship. This is an easy word. Under Salafi jihadi regime, the Druze people would never tolerate that. So it's not an option. I don't see this as an option. The only way is federation, I think, in my opinion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Clara, and thank you, Rania. Ira, you're next. Oh, you're muted.
Well, sorry. Thank you so much for this talk, Rania.
Thank you. And I'm sorry if I was too emotional today.
Oh, and thank you for your last answer because it leads right into the question I'm asking. Yes, one option is international involvement to protect the Druze and other minorities, the Alawis and the Kurds. And I'm wondering, well, how could that be done? How would you like it? What about an international protectorate, a formal protectorate for these areas? What about peacekeepers? And since the international community is rather unreliable, and as the chief protector of the United States is far from reliable, not just these days, but I'd say for the last 20 years, which is very sad to me as an American. But there is Israel. It's reliable, but it's very controversial. What do you see as the best way?
Well, to be honest with you, international protectors, if you talk about something UNRWA style or UNIFIL style, I don't trust it either. I don't think, in my opinion, that Druze in Syria would trust it because we saw on October 7th, these people, many of them were part of Hamas. So I don't know how much they are involved in terror attacks or in terror, activities. I don't think that the Druze can tolerate such a thing because the Druze people are a minority, but they are not fooled. No one can fool them. So I don't think they can tolerate this. I think they would want, and this is what I hear at least from them, to keep their weapons, to be able to be given the opportunity and the option to protect themselves because they can protect themselves. The Druze are warriors, are fighters. They are not these poor people that No, they know how to fight and protect themselves. It's just that they are minority facing hundreds of thousands of foreigners that came to Syria and are fighting them from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Chechnya, and everywhere. Now, alone, I don't see that they are able to do it. Humanitarian, like international protectors, depends who, and we have to make sure they are not really somehow involved or compromised. If you ask me as an Israeli, the only country I trust is Israel. I would wish that Israel would really be able to protect them. I'm not saying that this is what Israel would want, because every country has the right to protect its own interests after all. But this is my wish as an Israeli, because I love both, and I really think that the Druze would work better with Israel, but this is my opinion. The Druze people still wish, some of them, to really get rid of Jolani and have Syria for all Syrians. They never say that they want to separate from Syria. They always call that they want to be part of Syria, democratic for its all citizens, that everyone is included, that women have equal rights. That was on on the spiritual leader's speech, Al-Hijri. But to me, at least, I don't think this is already an option. That's a problem.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I agree with everything you said.
If you have another solution, please.
No,
Tell me that.
I agree. That's the least bad
Unfortunately.
one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ira. Courtney, you're next.
Hey, Rania. Hi, Yasmine. I hope you guys can hear me.
Yes.
I just wanted to say hi. I was just in Israel and I went to a Druze town, Sofia, and I had the best Druze kanafe. It was amazing. I love the Druze people so much. So I just wanted to ask, so it's really frustrating and terrifying for us in the West that some of us can see it so clearly, like what Islamists are doing, what their goals are. And I just kind of want to ask you why you think so many Westerners are in denial about it and can't see it. Is it ignorance? Is it because they don't know a solution? They're afraid of being racist? Is it all of that? Why do you think that so many people can't see it yet? And it's going to be too late by the time a lot of people see it.
Thank you for this question, Courtney. Honestly, I always think about it because this is the major question that the answer for it might change the world. So to be honest with you, do I have a definite answer? I don't. As you said, it's all what you mentioned, and I have more. So if you allow me to add to all the reasons which are true, in my opinion, the narrative of these groups who are now marketing for jihad over the West had worked so hard, so deliberately, so good on building this narrative that says that everyone who aligns with Western values is bad, and everyone who allows with let's be clear, with Gazan people is the good side. They built every person who agrees with Israel or protects Israel as the bad guy, and everyone who protects the Palestinians and as the good guy. So this narrative is not only on social media, is in our universities. The researches that have been done over the last 30 years in every university funded by Qatar or funded by China or Saudi Arabia, it's a big game. Let's be honest. It's not only about Islamic jihadi. Honestly, to be honest with you, I think they are even used by bigger players just to do some other, new world. So anyway, let's focus on them. Let's say them as a micro level. The Druze are somehow, especially in Israel, are considered as part of the Israeli narrative. The Druze in Syria weren't, and they've been even never involved in anything. They are peace people. They want a simple life. Up until this moment, they want to be part of Syria. But the thing is that because of us, the Druze in Israel that are very patriotic, very clear, very loud about our loyalty to Israel, I think this affected this minority negatively. But to say that this is the only reason, we are fooling ourselves. Because if that was the only reason, so why the Yazidis are massacred? Why the Alawites? Okay, the Alawites, let's claim as they claim that they are part of Assad's community. The Yazidis, what did they do? The Christians, the Coptic in Egypt, the Kurdish in Iraq, every minority, wherever you go, even within the Muslim Islamic world, are oppressed. And if they got the tools, they will be executed and massacred. So it's not about Israel. The Israel is just an excuse. It's not about the Western values that, sorry, it's about the Western values that they hate. And that's what bothers me the most, that many people in the West feel that too. They blame themselves.
Yeah.
They think that they are the ones responsible for what these poor jihadists are doing. Once, I want to tell you something. Once, if the time allows me, Yasmine. Yeah. So once I was in Israel and was involved in some, peace project, and we had the stabbing incidents in Israel by Palestinians, and then our group was so silent about what is happening when they were so loud when everything that was happening in Palestine. And then I was so annoyed. I said, why now no one is talking about the stabbing incidents? They are stabbing people on the streets. So they said, someone said something to me and I would never forget, and he was one of the managers of this project. He said, we can't blame them because they are the victim. This is the narrative, I think, that many Western people are going through. That day, I quit. I said, this is not peace movement. That's it. I was out because this is not peace. But this is one example that happened with me.
Yeah, I know. I had how can a people expect self-sovereignty if they can't even take any responsibility for their actions? It doesn't add up. And I also agree with you that I do think there are bigger players even above Islamists. Russia has a massive part of everything that's happening. And I do think Israel-Palestine is just it's just kind of the very simple polarized view the West takes when there's so much more, because their brains can't comprehend how complicated it is. So yeah, fantastic answer, and thank you so much.
I want to just add something to this. The Arab world, Yasmine knows and Sarah knows, they like so much. They admire the idea of conspiracy. They always say that the West is is having a conspiracy and they are victims of a conspiracy. And I always say, okay, you know what? Let's assume why you are always the ones falling for this conspiracy. If your nature is not built to be violent and hating everyone. I didn't see the Jewish people falling for any conspiracy after the Holocaust. I didn't see the Japanese people falling for any conspiracy after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Why only you? They should ask themselves this question.
Yeah, it's humans are meaning-making machines, and there's so many humans that just want to make something more of something that's so simple. So it's 100% true, and I agree with you in what you were saying before. I think the Druze and the Jews have so much in common because we just want to live a simple life and
live
a
and let
peaceful
live.
life. So yeah, exactly, 100%. So yeah, I really appreciate that, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Us too. Ex-Muslims too. We also want to live and let live. We're also
Right,
with you
right,
people. We're with all
exactly.
the everybody who isn't them, basically. We're all in the
Exactly,
same
Yasmin.
boat. Yeah.
This is the
It's just
thing.
some of us know it and some of us don't know it yet. Like Sam
Yeah,
Harris said, right? We all live in Israel, just some of us haven't realized it yet.
Yasmin, if on every
100%.
time I speak or I'm interviewed, I say one thing and I mean it. I always say don't generalize, even when it's easy to generalize because of some feeling or something. Because the moment we generalize, we are serving them, not us. They thrive over telling the other groups, the unprivileged group or whatever you call them, look, they hate you. See, they think you are XYZ. So I always very careful to not generalize because I do believe that I still believe, I want to believe that the majority are good people. I want to believe that really, truly.
Well, it almost doesn't matter if the majority are good people. It's irrelevant, right? It's
That's
like when we're
right.
looking at the whole
I
Gaza
agree.
Palestine issue right now, who cares if most of the people in Gaza are good people? At the end of the day, it's Hamas who are the ones who are
Right,
going in and massacring and doing what they're doing. And those quiet people that are scared for their lives, scared for their families, scared for
right.
their futures, even if they're good people, how does that
Yeah,
help? How is that significant? So it really doesn't make a difference.
unfortunately.
People love to say this, oh, it's 2 billion Muslims. There's only, a small percentage of them would kill you in your sleep. Well, that's
That's enough. This is what we
first of
always
all,
say.
it's enough.
Why should I
But
take
second
the
of
risk?
all,
Right,
they're
exactly.
not fighting against each other though. See, this is the thing. Like you see this as much as I do, I'm sure. As soon as an Israeli says something stupid, says something racist, says something violent, says something, xenophobic, it's the Israelis whose voices are the loudest condemning this person and saying, shame
Right,
on you, you do
right,
not represent us. There is a collective moral, like just what's the word I'm looking for? Like a they have this need to make sure that they are upholding the highest of moral standards, right? We
right.
don't have that in the Muslim
No,
community
no,
at all,
100%.
right? It's the opposite. When there was the imam in South Africa that was killed, the gay imam that was killed, all you heard from everybody on social media was like, Ahsan, it's good. He should have been killed. They should kill them all, whether they're Muslim or not. All the gay people
Right.
should be killed. Blah, 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 blah. That's the chorus that you're hearing, right? When you had the nurses
Well, I
in
agree.
in Australia going on about killing Israelis, what did you have? You had 60 Muslim organizations across Australia in support of these nurses. That's what you get. So I don't
Yasmin,
care if the good ones are there. They're meaningless to me.
Yasmin, on October 7th, we all know they distributed candies celebrating.
Yeah.
Now, after the
Mhm.
Druze massacre, I follow every group. I see how happy they were. I just think on my part, I'm doing my part. I don't want to be like them. I don't know how to explain
I
this. I
know.
don't want to fall into this
I don't
trap to
want you
be
to
like them.
either, but I also want you to be realistic because there is a toxic
Right.
delusion of hope is the reason why Israel is in the situation that it's in
Right.
today, right? And
I
now
agree.
Israel is waking up from this coma. It's waking up
I
from this
hope.
toxic delusion of hope, right? And but the rest of the world still hasn't, and I don't know if they will anytime soon. But as
That's
long as
right.
you still keep on thinking that your enemy is like you and that you're
Oh,
going to
no,
reach them
no,
through the
that's not the
same ways
point.
that you can be reached and blah blah blah, we're wasting our time.
You know,
It's
in Arabic, there is a say that says that who is silent when the right thing is happening, he's a silent devil. You know, الساكت عن الحق شيطان أخرس.
That's it.
No, I totally
Mhm.
100% believe in this. I'm just, you got it. Like I just
Yeah,
want to like I'm trying to find a hope. And
yeah,
unfortunately, it's not there. I agree with you.
I know. I'm in the exact same place as you, Rania. I'm in the exact same spot. Exact same spot. So I cling onto every Muslim person that I know that is a good person with a good heart, I cling to them and for hope. This is why my podcast is full of these folks all the time, as much as I can find them, right? But in the grand scheme of things, the reality on the ground is that their voices are so minuscule, such a minority, and they can come on my podcast and talk, but they can't speak in their own communities, right? They can't speak in their own families. That's how toxic it is for anybody who doesn't believe in that ideology. So even if you're a good person, you have to keep it under wraps. You have to pretend that you're not a good person. So it's a very bad situation that I know I'm preaching to the choir now. I know you know all this, but it's that balance of maintaining hope and not wanting to generalize and keeping your heart open, but also being realistic.
Right.
And not
Totally,
being
yes.
lulled into a false sense of security and hope.
That's honestly what I'm trying to do, even with others, to really raise this awareness or being realistic.
Yeah, it's a tough place to be for sure.
Very.
People prefer black and white, right and left. You know what I mean? It's just easier for them to keep it in their mind. People like us who are like trying to maintain the nuance in the gray areas, it's a constant juggling battle.
And I think that's the West's problem, by the way. That's one of the West's problems.
Yes, of course, I completely agree with you.
You.
Yes, I do. I've said this so many times. They want the world to be a Disney movie. They want to see the bad guys with black hats and the good guys with white hats. Just tell me who's the oppressor and who's oppressed. It's like the world doesn't work that way, right? This is not the reality. Even what you were talking about now, about that situation that happened with you in that peace organization where they said, oh, they're the victims. It's such simplistic thinking. People can be victims and oppressors simultaneously, and they are every day. Like it's this weird thing of like, no, if you are X, then you have to be. Then you're the victim, then you're the minority, then you're the oppressed, then you are the one that we protect.
I don't agree they are the victims anyway. They are the ones
who
always attacked us.
But they see any minority. This is the thing too, is like the white people are the minorities on the planet. This is what I like to remind them. Like, you are the minority. They always they look at Arabs and they look at brown people and they say, oh, little minorities, sweet little baby minority, let me take care of you. It's like, no. They are powerful. They have the petrodollars. They have the political will, and they have the masses over you. You are the minority. Like, they don't get it twisted. It's like they're living in their own delusional little narcissistic navel-gazing bubble where they think that it's arrogance, really, at the end of the day. Yeah. It's like, oh, I will be the savior and take care. No, you are the one that needs to be saved.
Right.
But they don't see themselves that way. And until you can humble yourself to recognize, they just want to look at them and say, oh, they're a bunch of cave-dwelling, uneducated idiots, and then just move on with their day. And yes, that is true, but cave-dwelling, uneducated idiots can murder your children very easily. So it's important not to dismiss them, as history has shown us so many times. But yeah, I believe that is part of the issue with the West, is they just cannot see brown people as any kind of, like, they will always make excuses for them. Like I said, when the Islamists are killing Christians in Nigeria, their answer is, oh, climate change. They're never going to acknowledge the reality. They're never going to see that. So I don't know what it's going to take. They see themselves as the bad guy, and Jews, Israelis as the bad guy.
Big time.
Yeah. And everybody else is the being oppressed by these.
No Jews, no news.
That's right. If this was, you wouldn't be here on this podcast begging for somebody to pay attention if we were talking about something that Jews had done or that Americans had done. It would be all over the news 24/7, right? But because this is something that Syrians are doing to your community, it's like nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to acknowledge it.
Even if Israel was doing a fraction of what is Al-Julani doing, you would see it on every major mainstream media.
And Israel would never. They always just exaggerate whatever is happening and they make it like the worst thing possible. Meanwhile, they're ignoring the actual mountains because they're focusing on the molehills.
Right. Right.
Which brings me to Ari's question, which I think is a really good one, and it's one that I'm interested to hear the answer to as well. So Ari, go ahead, please. You're muted, sorry.
Thank you, Yasmine. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. And thank you, Rania. Really appreciate you coming on. I had a question first about the Druze in the Golan Heights, because that area was taken in 67. And I read that many of the Druze there, they see themselves as Syrian,
Right.
and many of them refused to take Israeli citizenship. And I guess maybe now after the Majd al-Shams massacre, that's changing too. But I was wondering what the reason for that was. Like, is it because they had a fear of, jeopardizing the status of their relatives in Syria, or did they really see themselves as loyal Syrians living under occupation in Israel, or is there anything else?
Thank you. I want to tell you something. Last time I came with Yasmine, she had a question for me about the Golan Heights, and I didn't even want to answer it. I had to ask someone from the Golan Heights to give me the answer, because I said, I'm an Israeli Druze. I don't know what he believes he is, so I don't want to speak on his behalf because I have different narrative, different reality. And if you remember, Yasmine, I read his answer to you. After what is happening in the Middle East, especially in Syria, and the silence that the world is committing against these minorities, especially my minority, I felt some sort of responsibility to speak their voice, their silenced voice, because I have the power, I have the opportunity to speak loud. Now, about the Syrian in the Golan Heights, they had the same thing, I guess, just like me. They had, but even worse, because they have direct relatives. In Syria, they have daughters, they have brothers, siblings, mothers. Some families are divided the same direct family. So imagine yourself having your daughter in Syria and coming saying, I am Israeli. You know what's going to happen to your daughter? You never know.
Right.
People there, for any problem, even if they said something against, if they used to say something against the government, they would immediately accuse them of treason. And the only way they could do that by saying, he said, I love Israel, or he wrote something in Hebrew, and they were disappearing, vanishing. This how it was there, and everyone knows that. Now, even I wasn't like really well aware of to what level this oppression was up until now. Now we're hearing stories. I'm in direct contact with people. We're hearing stories about oppression that they had during Assad's regime, that you could really like sending them to Saidnaya prison only for daring to say, I don't agree to pay you 90% of my factory's gains, because this was the rule. If you have a factory, for example, in Suweida, you have to pay the government 90% of your gains.
Wow.
And the only way they could get rid of them is to say they love Israel. They are Israeli lovers. They are normalizing. So the Syrian in Golan Heights, I think they were well aware of it more than us in Israel, and they maintained this balance. But on the ground, the Golan, like I said it last time, and I'm going to say it right now, according to the international law, the Golan Heights is exactly like Gaza or the West Bank. But have you been in Israel?
No.
Okay. Every Israeli or every Jewish that visited Israel, they know that they can go at any time to the Golan Heights, sit on the restaurants, eat, have fun, eat pita Druze pita, very famous, dish in Israel, and nothing would happen. Not even, they will always smile for you. They will always be very, their hospitality is gonna be very welcoming. This is the Druze. So yes, they might consider themselves Syrians, and we don't blame them for that, because after all, according to international law, they are Syrian. Let's admit it. So they're doing nothing wrong by saying we are Syrian. Now, even now, I don't think that the only way to respect the Syrian people and give them their rights is to say we are Israelis. They can still be Syrians because this is the truth. They are Syrians. But I respect them because even after getting massacred, they still don't want to agree to a radical regime controlling them because they were oppressed enough, and now they have the power, they have the opportunity to have a better life, and they are not staying silent. I would always respect them whether they decided to stay part of Syria or not, but I expect from them that this time they will choose right. To be able to express who they really are without any fear. This is what they are missing.
Thank you. Thank you. I did have one quick follow-up question. I was reading that in some accounts they were saying that the Druze came as an offshoot of Ismaili Shia, but then they say we're not Muslim. Do some Druze see themselves as Muslim because of that, or do they all say we're not Muslim?
Oh my God, this is the
Complicated
toughest
one.
question.
Yeah.
I know the answer, but you know
Yeah.
what? Especially after this massacre, I don't want to get involved in this because I don't want any soul to be lost because
Yeah.
of my opinion.
You have to be
It's
careful, Ari.
that
People can't
dangerous.
expose
It's
themselves
that
as being
dangerous.
Muslim or not Muslim when you're living under an Islamic theocracy, especially an Islamic terrorist regime.
I used to be very verbal about my culture, who I am, and Yasmine knows that. But now I'm very worried that because the world is not listening to us, they are letting them do whatever they want. Macron is, welcoming him in the Elysee Castle and banning Netanyahu from going to France, by the way.
Yeah.
So what can we expect from this world? I can't expect any fairness, and I don't want to take my responsibility to speak on their behalf on this matter, honestly.
Understood.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Ari. Great questions. So Sarah's got a whole bunch of questions from people who wrote in the chat, who didn't want to come on camera, but I've asked her to just choose one because we're running really long on this episode, and I know there's so much more that we could talk about. But we're going to take one more question from Sarah, and then we're going to wrap it up. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you, Rania. Just a very quick comment before I ask the question, because that's my question as well, and I'd like to know the answer to this. Yasmin and I were talking earlier this week about the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And you're doing something. I don't care if they're good people or not good people. You are one of the best people for speaking up. And in my book, we are triumphing because of that. So thank you. Thank you for fighting back with us. Now, I come from Iran, as you know, and it's always about the Islamic regime and them. Oh, I love you so much. Thank you.
Sarah, thank you. They're being silenced, massacred, and I think that everyone that has a voice should just scream their voice, not only the Druze, all these people, oppressed people, whether in Iran or in Arabic, world, everywhere, please.
You are speaking up, and that's what matters. You're allies. So thank you. Sorry.
Welcome.
It's a very difficult time, I know. So the question is, would attacking Iran's nuclear program or other military assets help the Druze in Syria or the Jews in Israel or the Alawites or the Yazidis or all the other minorities in the region? Because we all know that the Islamic regime is responsible for a lot of these things that are happening. Do you think attacking their
100%.
nuclear power?
I agree 100%. Now the main player, and why I say the main player, because it's not the only player, unfortunately, but the main player that funds most of them, with the help of other countries who now try to play the dual agent, the peace facilitator, just such Qatar, they are the main founders, or how you say it, they fund
Funders.
these, the main funders. Now we know that Turkey is not also this innocent player as well, but Turkey is way far from being as dangerous as Iran. Iran is a really direct threat to the whole Middle East, to the whole Western society, not only the Middle East. And if the American people think that what is happening there will stay there, they are totally mistaken. What is happening there is just one step to what is going to happen everywhere. And it is happening here. Look at our universities, our campuses, everywhere. So yes, I think that Iran should never be tolerated. Iran is playing a very, very tough game, trying to outsmart everyone, like going ahead with the negotiations, trying to show that it's really, doing something under the ground. She's just funding and doing everything it could to just strengthen these groups, whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah or now Al-Julani. No, Al-Julani, no, sorry. Now Turkey is trying to, but you know what? Now is Qatar
Inshallah.
trying. No, Qatar is trying
Soon.
to. Qatar
Yeah.
is trying to fund Al-Julani, and who is Qatar?
Mm.
Qatar is Iran's ally. So
Mhm.
it takes us to that question. They are all connected, even when we
Mhm.
think that they are enemies.
Mhm. Mhm.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rania.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmine.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everybody for joining us here today. And thank you, Rania, for your honesty and bravery. Thank you for coming and sharing your voice with us and talking to us about your community. I know this is an incredibly emotional time for you, a very difficult time. It's like a difficult time on top of a difficult time. You know, your
Exactly.
community
Yeah.
has just been suffering endlessly. And it adds insult to injury the way the world is ignoring what's happening in Syria to the Druze community. It's so dehumanizing, and we're doing the best we can to help get your voice out there, to help you be heard, to let you know that you are not forgotten, you are not ignored, that we do see you, we do acknowledge what's going on, we are angry on your behalf. You know, if we would do anything to be able to stop this madness that's happening across the planet, we're doing the best we can. And I hope that you coming here and sharing your voice has alleviated some of the emotional exhaustion and pain that you're feeling. And I hope that your community knows that there are so many of us out there who see them and hear
Indeed.
them and who care about them.
Yeah, indeed. Like when the massacre had happened, I'm in many groups. Most of them are Jewish, by the way, and they were the only and first people to step and to do something when everyone was silent. And now you, Yasmine, I have another friend. She's amazing. Her name is Rania Dean also, but
Yes, she is
she's
amazing. I
amazing.
adore her. Yeah.
There are
She's one of the
people.
great Muslims that I cling
She's
to.
amazing.
That's her. Yeah.
There are people here that are really trying to do the difference, just like yourself and Sarah. And these people that are really taking the time, what is it, like almost 2 hours, just sitting and listening. Please continue doing this, because if we don't do this, no one would. No one.
That's right. No one's coming to
So-
save us. Yeah, absolutely. So, Rania, I just want to make sure that you've said everything you wanted to say. There isn't anything that you haven't had a chance to express yet. Before we conclude, I just want to make sure you get the last word.
Just one simple message to the West. Stop legitimizing and funding terrorists. And if you continue doing this and thinking that you are a step ahead on this chess game, it's going to come back to you in your backyard, not only on Israel's backyard.
100%. Thank you so much, Rania.
Thank you.
And thank you again for your bravery. And thank you for everybody who came here today to listen to Rania, and for those of you who shared questions and
Thank you.
comments with her. We appreciate you all. All right, take care,
Thank you
everyone.
all. Thank
Bye,
you.
Rania. Bye, Habibti.
After hearing all that, you might be left wondering, what can I do? How can I help? Well, this is why I created a nonprofit called Free Hearts, Free Minds. We are the only organization dedicated exclusively to helping these free thinkers. We empower them with our programs and supportive community, lifting them up so they can heal, speak out, and begin to make positive changes, not just in their own lives, but within the broader community around them. If this is a cause that resonates with you and you want to make a difference, one way to do that is by donating to Free Hearts, Free Minds.
Because not enough people care about this cause, we need people like you to help fuel this change. You can donate via our website, freeheartsfreeminds.com. Thank you. Every dollar you donate makes a difference.